So, Rhys, welcome to Southside Stories. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us.
No, thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe to start off with, Rhys. You run a very successful marketing agency, which we're going to get into the details on in a second. But tell me a little bit about you and your background.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Rhys, one of the co-founders of Prospect Knight. We're a marketing agency based in London, in England. Work across loads of different businesses, which I'm sure we'll speak about today. But yeah, my background is marketing, family man. Love my sports when I'm not trying to work. But yeah,
What's your
basically.
favorite sport?
Oh, good question. We haven't got time for all of them, but I'd say cycling, triathlons, football.
Ah,
But yeah, I love to
okay.
swim, love to keep fit. I'm
Yeah.
sure most entrepreneurs know quite quickly, you can't just drink your way through this. You have to live a certain life, similar to an athlete, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I try to live my life that way, especially when I'm getting towards the 40.
Oh well, yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that. We should have a chat about triathlons afterwards. But anyway, no, that's great to hear. Good stuff. And you work across. You work with the two brothers, don't you?
I do, yes. So founded the business with two of my brothers. We have a third brother. We say he's got a proper job. He's in insurance, but yeah, no, two brothers co-founding, which is exciting.
Yeah. Great. Well, we're going to talk about that in a minute, actually, because I'm very interested in the family dynamic. It
Yeah.
can either be great or it can be not so great. But I'm sure it's great for you. But we're going to get into that in a minute. What is it about marketing? So you've done marketing for a while. What is it about marketing that you particularly love?
For me, I love working with brands. Like me and my brothers are all brand people. Like we buy into stories. Like people say, market we fall for our own things, right? I love listening to different brands and their stories, and doing this job allows us to do that. In the past, we've looked at niching down into sectors, but it's never something we want to do because, yeah, we just love working with individual brands. We've thought about running our own businesses, but I feel like this way we get to fill all different sectors and all
Yeah.
different types of businesses.
Yeah, great. All right, we're going to talk about brands in a minute. In fact, we're going to talk about it right now. Now, actually, give us a flavour. Who are your client roster? What do they look like?
It's very broad. So luckily for us, although we're based in London, around 50% of our business sits globally. So we've got quite a lot of clients in the States. We work with sportswear brands. I don't know if you've heard of Gore-Tex or Gorewear, a big global cycling outdoor brand. We work with those guys. We work with MacDougall, which is arguably the biggest women's dress company in the world. We've got a really good story to tell about those guys and the story we've been on with them. Closer to home, we work with Battersea Power Station. So we do all the marketing for Battersea Power Station. Those gardeners out there, we work with Dobby's Garden Centre. So they're one of the UK's biggest garden centres. We do all their loyalty. So very mixture. Like I say, we work in lots of different sectors, whether that's tech, pharmaceutical, e-commerce. But the main sort of similarity between these, they're all working in a global scale.
Yeah. Okay. And you've grown very quickly. Is that right?
Yeah, so we are in our sixth financial year, and yeah, super quick. We're turning over around 3 million. We're employing around 28 people. In our eyes, that's quick, but maybe not in others. But for us, it's been organic as well. So we've bootstrapped this from the ground up.
Yeah. That's great. That's a great track record. Congrats on getting to 3 million. Um, we might come back to a bit of that in a second. Let's switch to, just because I'm fascinated by the family side. So your approach to risk taking and managing the business with you and your brothers. Uh, how do you split the roles of running the agency?
Yeah, it's a good question. My dad and mum actually work with us as well, so bigger dynamics that we can probably talk about. But very early on, we used to do everything. So we used to muck in. We always on the tools, as it were. We'd all sort of do everything together, and we understood quite quickly that that wasn't the way that we would scale. So about 2.5 years ago, we pushed into our own roles. So my role is leading us into new territories, new services, and sales, as it were. My brother Marcus is more operational, so he makes sure that the business is running from an operational standpoint, similar to like a managing director. And then my brother Luke manages our clients, so he's client service. I look after coming in, Luke manages the current clients, and Marcus manages the operation. So very early on, we realised that we needed to make sure we owned certain areas of the business. And very fortunately, although we're brothers, we're all quite different and we've all got different skill sets, which funny enough, you don't sometimes find with brothers. You find they're all quite similar, but we're quite lucky that we've all got our own skill sets and we've sort of naturally moved into the roles that we have.
How do you um, how do you make decisions? I mean, because we got to, if you're running an agency, you've got to make a lot of decisions, right? Including expansion, investment, staff issues, endless list. How do you make decisions with your brothers while remaining mates at the end of the day and going out for a drink afterwards?
You know what? This is the question everyone asks us. And we have a couple of rules. One is we don't talk about work at the weekend. So if we're around family, like we do not talk about work. We hug at the end of difficult conversations. So we never fall out. These are two important parts of what we do. But in terms of decisions, I think we're all quite clever enough to know not to argue. So we talk things through. Sometimes we have to talk at length, but we normally go with the gut feeling of if someone feels so strongly about it, we lead with that. And obviously where there's three of us, if two of us agree, then we go with the majority. But 9 times out of 10, if someone feels passionately about it, we sort of buy into it, and we all have our own areas, right? So if I'm trying to launch a new service or if I'm trying to do something in that space, like they will back me because I'm so close to it. Or if my brother Luke wants to build out certain things within the teams, because he's so close to that, I trust him. And same with Marcus in the operational. So I think we back each other in our own areas, but ultimately it's a collective thing still, which a lot of people don't believe.
If you had to give, because we work with a lot of business owners who've got family members in the business.
Hmm.
If you were going to, I'm going to put you on the spot now, but if you were going to give one bit of advice to somebody that is working with a family member, what would it be?
Don't take it personal
Yeah.
or like it's business. I know this is a very generic thing to say, but like, yeah, and I think it's trust. Like I generally trust my brothers. Like business, I've found out in my short career, like there's sometimes you can trust people that you don't, like it comes to fruition that you shouldn't. And I generally trust my brothers. And I think as long as you're doing it with trust and care, doesn't matter if someone's your brother or someone you've only just met. I think that they're the key things for me. Like
Yeah.
someone, if I lose someone's trust, it doesn't matter if they're my brother or
Yeah.
someone else, you know? So
Very good point.
hopefully that answers your question.
It does. It does. Yeah. And I'm interested because we spoke previously and you've now got 28 people. And I think over the last 6 years, you've upgraded the office space at least once. And I think you sort of upgraded it ahead of being able to fill it. How do you approach sort of that forward? It's kind of risk taking, isn't it? Because you're basically laying down cost before the revenue comes in. How do you manage those kind of discussions, but as a collective, and and your approach generally to risk taking?
So that's a really good point. So through COVID, we didn't obviously use the office like most people didn't. We grew. So when we came back, I think we had like 10 desks for like 20 people or something. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was overran. And at that point, then we wasn't using it how we wanted. We wasn't sure where we was moving to, and it was just a bit disjointed. And we knew that if we wanted to build the agency we have or trying to have, and we wanted to build it with an office, with a physical space, which obviously there's other debates whether or not that is the way forward, but we wanted to build this hub for Prospect Night in London. We opted for a big office that we wanted to fill. And the reason we did that is because it builds the dream, it builds people to see where we're trying to get to and people to buy in. But obviously that come at a huge cost. For transparency, the office we had before was a container. So as much as it had this amount of desk, it was quite a small investment. So in terms of the risk, we had to do it. It was like, do we want to get from where we're trying to get to? Is this going to help? Yes. Okay, we need to do it. And then from needing to do it, how do we do it? So we've recently, over the last couple of years, got board advisors that have been really helpful to us, and they help us with some difficult decisions to make when it can't be made just us. And this one in particular, we worked out that it was a huge risk, but if, God forbid, it all went wrong tomorrow, we done the calculations and the investments we had within the business, we could have like nursed the storm. So although it was a huge risk, it was a calculated one. the one that we could fall back if God forbid it had to be.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to talent, culture, hiring, retaining talent. Marketing agencies, a lot of them tell me it's hard hiring people. It's hard keeping hold of good people. As you know, advertising and marketing, it's quite flighty. People move around quite a lot. Tell us first off a bit about your employees more generally, their demand for flexibility, working from home. What's your policy on that and how do you manage it?
Yeah, of course. So we work a 3-day in the office rule. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the office is open. Everyone has to be in non-negotiable. To provide some form of flexibility in that, obviously people work from home the Monday and the Friday, but within them 3 days of office open, we give people these workation credits, we call them, that people can work. They were made to work through COVID anywhere in the world. So you can basically take 2 weeks off, not off work, but working remotely anywhere in the world, as long as you're in the time zones of your clients. So that's been really helpful. We don't think we're ever going to go back to 5 days. The way that our industry is, we feel that it's probably fair to do the 3 days in and then the 2 days off. Yeah. And it's funny because a lot of the people that work here now, which will go on to like the type of people we hire, that they've never worked a 5-day full time in the office, which it blows my mind, right? Because Fridays are always my favorite day. But yeah, no, that's one of the perks we give. Yeah. There's other ones that we can provide, but yeah, that's the main one. And I think your other question was around the types of people, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think you've got a kind of interesting hiring policy, haven't you? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, you made a really good point. In our industry, historically, people move around. It's very known that people after 2 years they will move to another agency. They will just move on. So that's just historic. But what we've found is that hiring people not from experience but on like ability that we see, it seems to work quite nicely because as like a builder, for instance, there's always ways of doing things, ways that people can build houses. But in our way, the Prospect Night way, if we get someone with experience, sometimes they don't have the way that we would want to do it. So we have our experienced team here, and then we build from underneath with new, fresh people. And we call it our graduate scheme because majority of people have gone to university in the UK. And it just works great. We're hiring people on attributes as opposed to ability. Or
yeah, I wanted to ask you about that, but it's great you're hiring graduates because the graduate market is really tough right now for younger people. So that's a great thing you're doing there. One of the challenges, though, I guess, is that they don't have a track record, they don't have a CV. What are some of those attributes and skills or attitudes that you're hiring on?
Yeah, the main ones is optimistic. They have to be optimistic. That is like the main one for us. Like we have goals in our mind of where we want to get to, and people have to be optimistic of the future and where they're going to get to. The other one is a growth mindset. Again, we're setting these real strong goals in place, and like people have to. We don't want moaners. We don't want people that are going to like negatrons, we call them, right? We want people with a growth mindset. And just like smart, you can just tell, like not smart academically. I'm not someone that's academic. It's just when someone walks in the room, I just know straight away whether or not they're going to be great or not. And you made a good point. Like it is really difficult for graduates at the moment, and we've just hired a role, and this person's amazing, and they just said they couldn't get a job because they didn't have experience. Don't get me wrong, they're not people that are like the finished article. There's a graduate scheme we have here, and we put people through it. So it's not like they're straight on the tools. It's an investment, but within like 3 to 6 months, they're getting up to speed fast.
Yeah, great. And how important is the culture? It sounds like the culture is something you really encourage and think about. How important is that? What do you do to build and preserve your culture?
Culture's huge, right? As anyone would tell you, it only takes the newest person in or the next addition to your team or your family completely transforms culture for the better or for the worse. So we are conscious of that. As a family-led business, we don't like it to be around us, but we lead with the family culture, the family values. So that's important. As I mentioned, my mum works here. There's like a parenting thing going on. So we're very close as a team, but we have a social squad. So we take it off of our hands as founders. We put it into the arms of the teams. And yeah, we have a social squad that put on something big every quarter, and every month we get together as a team. So last week we was in the comedy club in Hackney. The month before we did pottery. We try not to make it all around the pub, which sometimes there can become like pub culture within agencies. Don't get me wrong, we all like to go to the pub, but we try to do things as that will connect us, not just through alcohol.
Yeah. Okay. That's good and healthy. Um, Tell me just a couple of things around challenges because you got a great story there. Growth, hiring graduates, some awesome clients, and probably some great campaign creative, which we're going to come on to in a minute. Just tell me a little bit about the major challenges. What are the things that might keep you up at night, for example?
I think the biggest challenge for us or me as an agency owner would be people. So people being clients, people being staff, people being consumers. Like we are an agency connecting people, right? So I think people is what keeps us up at night, is something that is always going to drive the trends. So I say like that is probably the biggest one is people, keeping our staff happy. So I'd say that's the biggest challenge. I suppose the current state of the world is tough for marketing. Obviously, through COVID, people had cash to hand, or a lot of people had cash to hand. So doing marketing rain jackets or marketing holidays become a lot easier. I think people don't have that cash at the moment globally. I see it becoming better at the moment, but I think their bigger challenges, what predominantly we're selling online is what people desire to have, not always need. So I say that's a challenge for us. And the other one, which is all businesses have, which is new business, new revenue. We're a growing business. We have aspirations to be bigger, so it's always a need for new business.
How do you find new business? What's your kind of strategy there?
So predominantly, as most businesses start, it's referrals.
Yeah.
Referrals is our biggest driver still. I wish it was a tap that we could turn on. Over the last 12 months, we've built out our marketing team. So we're building out. We believe as an agency, once we have the lead within our ecosystem, we're pretty good. We can get people to buy into us and what we're about. It's the hardest bit is to find them. So we've now created this call it cold leading, but a cold lead strategy that's working quite nicely. We have a thing called a brand performance scorecard, so people can fill it out. It spits out data straight away. It gives you an idea of where you're at as a brand, and then from that we then speak to them about the scores, about how they can improve, and it builds up maybe a slower process as opposed to just cold calling someone asking them if they want our services. And we found it quite quickly working quite nicely. We also work with Shopify, so we've done a few webinars with Shopify recently. We've got one next week, which is going to talk to their whole membership. There's going to be quite a few people on that webinar around audiences. And Google, we're in the 1% of the agencies in the UK, and we do a lot with Google. We've got some nice case studies coming out next month. So partnerships is the big one for us,
Yeah.
and our scorecard.
Great stuff. All right. Let's go to marketing, and you touched on it already. Actually, the challenges or the changing face of marketing. I mean, I started my career in marketing back in the mid 90s, which probably before you were born, wasn't it?
No, close.
Yes, yeah. I mean, when I started, it was direct mail was the kind of big thing, and then it's just before sort of the whole digital thing took off. Marketing is so different now. Tell me a little bit in your career, how has engagement changed with clients? Are there more decision makers involved, when you're trying to get a client over the line?
Yeah, like in terms of the decision making, or has that changed? I honestly have never been. Every situation or new prospect is never the same. I don't know if you find that, but like, I can see certain patterns, right? But for me, every situation, every lead is completely different in terms of the process. We've always tried to like make it similar or pattern, but it never happens. So I'd say that hasn't changed.
Okay.
I feel like the way that marketing over the past 5 to 10 years, marketing's completely changed. Obviously, Meta took over originally Facebook. There was some great opportunities there for brands. Obviously, the privacy policies changed a lot recently, which has made that quite harder. Restrictions have changed. Machine learning has changed these platforms massively, massively. So the future, I feel, for marketing, in my opinion, is going to come down to creative. I do believe we're going slightly backwards where creative used to lead quite a lot, whereas before it was more like what you put into meta. Now I think we're going to be leading more top of the funnel awareness stuff, which is interesting. So I believe like creativity is going to be massive. You mentioned direct mail. We still do loads of direct mail, which is great. I believe direct mail is better used from a retention purposes as opposed to awareness.
Uh-huh.
I think there's better tools out there to do an awareness marketing piece. But yeah, retention marketing, DM's great.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter the demographic.
What's a couple of examples there, perhaps of your own DM that you're doing in retention?
Yeah, so Dobby's Garden Centre, we do, it's similar to like a Tesco's club card. We do all the Dobby's loyalty and communications. I think they've got over 1 million loyalty customers. So we would send communications to that audience every month, predominantly trying to drive them into store. So they give out a lot of free coffees. So if you come in, you get free coffees, or you may have a club card where you get like the coupons of money off type of thing. So we do lots of stuff with that, call them trade drivers. So yeah, from a retention purposes, DM I think is great. Don't get me wrong, if you're Domino's Pizza, like a big door drop potentially work, but for the majority of businesses, I think DM should only really be used from a retention purposes.
Now, of course, everything is so measurable with digital and data and so on. Do you think that marketing is becoming almost too scientific, and perhaps the creativity and the artistry is perhaps not as great as it used to be?
I think the science is needed. I think the science brings all the numbers together. So I think I champion that side of it. I think consumers have so many touch points these days from the moment they wake up to the moment their head hits the pillow. Like we need to bring that into one place. So I believe that is for the benefit of brands. What I believe in the next 12 to 18 months and not longer, I do believe creativity is going to be the biggest driver from performance. So the way that we used to run big ad campaigns, which slightly changed over recent years with the different platforms, I think you'll see come back. I think people want more stories. I think people want more brand-led stories. I think personally, I do believe people are getting more savvier to marketing. I read something today around influencer marketing and how that could potentially be redundant in the future because people are seeing through it. People want to feel. People see through influencers. I don't know how I feel about it because I think there is tasteful influencers in the right products, but I think people want to. I think there needs to be more emphasis on community building and brand building. I think they're the interesting parts, backed by the scientific of the tracking side of it. I think we'll be golden. So I don't see it as a negative. I just think there's so many platforms now. It's difficult to choose.
Yeah. Okay. Um, well, let's switch to, well, actually, not, let's stick with that topic actually, which is perhaps your own creative or your own campaigns. What is a piece of creative or a campaign that you're most proud of?
Yeah, so I say the most. There's some we could be here all day for some like standout ones. Some that have really pushed us on as an agency. I suppose the biggest success stories is MacDougall, the wedding dress company. So we took them on, and they're roughly circa $20 million wholesale. They used to basically wholesale distribute to wedding boutiques across the world. We converted them into an e-commerce brand, and they're now over 250 million in turnover, and we've done that in like 3.5, 4 years. I'd love to say it's just our hard work, but it's them as a brand. We've been part of that. So I say that's like one of our biggest success stories. And that just literally came off of a coffee. I met someone, we had a coffee, and the rest is history. So I love that story. I'd say from a creativity
Just before you move on, what would you say is your biggest contributor to that success for them?
So I would say it was holding their hand through the whole process. So they needed to convert it was a family-led business that historically had a wholesale partnerships with most of the big superstores. And it's a very dangerous game you play from wholesale to e-commerce, direct to consumer. So we had to support them through that. And we had to nurse them through the whole process of scaling. They've scaled every state in the States now, direct to consumer, and now we've launched them internationally. So now we market them globally now. So our part of that was holding their hand through that whole process because we've done it before. We've taken brands that are in one market into others. So I think that's where we played a big part. But like I say, it was a team effort. It wasn't just
Yeah.
what we provided them.
Okay. Okay. And yeah, I think you were going to come on to another example.
Yeah, and then from a creative standpoint, so as I mentioned, we work with Gore-Tex, is
Yeah.
the material brand. Gorewear is the actual e-commerce brand. We've been shooting some great stuff with those. They were historically a very traditional European brand. They're now trying to conquer the world. So I'm quite proud of the work that the team have done to help them shape what they're doing. We've got a new video coming out hopefully next month, which we took some athletes to the Isle of Man. It was quite a remote part of the island. And we did like a bit of a cinematic style ad. So that's a very top of the funnel campaign. And then from that, we're going to do emails, blogs, social ads. There's going to be a big piece on the website. So I love that initial creative piece is going to filter down into all areas of the business.
Yeah, that's a great example, isn't it, of somebody investing in creativity and not just in, I don't know, a motion graphic driven banner ad, but that is actually getting out there and filming some amazing footage. Um, have you been working with Gorewear a lot for a long time?
Yeah, we have. So they were actually one of our first clients, which is mad. So yeah, around 5 years. We have great retention actually. We've got a lot of our clients have been with us quite a while, which we're proud of. But no, they're one of the brands that we worked with for quite a while.
The reason I asked slightly is actually I've seen a lot of Gorewear Instagram ads. In the UK, would those be some of yours?
Yes, all of those.
Yeah,
Yes,
really? Okay.
we run all their marketing. We do all their emails. So you'd receive their emails. If you're buying Gorewear in a store somewhere, you may see the graphics in the store. We support that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's one that I work closely with. So I probably can talk about it quite more than other clients.
Well, I can tell you it's definitely worked because over Christmas I really started to clock the brand because I guess Instagram probably picked up cycling or running or something, and I bought two items online, and that's probably directly from seeing your ads. So
Yeah,
yeah,
no, it is. We'll take merit for that.
brilliant. Okay, so just to wrap up then, tell me what you're most excited about for 2025, Rhys.
So for us as an agency, we want to bring brand and performance closer. That for me is the sweet spot for us. I'm excited to be working on brand stuff. So like we're working with a pharmaceutical brand at the moment. We're launching them in a couple of months. We're doing real brand stuff to drive them into the market and then backed up by the performance team. So I'm really excited to really push as an agency into the brand side, which historically we've never done. So for us, that if we can do that over the next couple of years, I'll be super proud of it.
Brilliant. Okay. And last question, which I'm asking everybody, is what's the best piece of advice you've ever received? It could be from anyone, something that perhaps you apply to business. It could be a brother, a family member, a previous leader, but a piece of advice that's really stayed with you.
Yeah, this is a good question. I've got a saying my brother said. So before we set the business up, we was all working in different places. I got a new job, and I was really out of my comfort zone. It was a new role. It was my role that probably changed what I'm actually doing today. But it was an important role, and he sent me a message said, "What if you fall? Question mark. But what if you fly?" And that stuck with me for a long while. It's like, yeah, you might fall over and scrape yourself, but you might not. You might fly, and you know what? That's stuck with everything I do. So I know it's not a bit of advice, but I suppose it's something that sticks with me. The only bit of advice, there's two bits of advice that stick with me, I suppose, are things take longer than you think. So I'm someone that works at super speed. I want things today. It's just the way that my brain is. But I've learned over time just to like let things settle sometimes. And I think as entrepreneurs, the way that our brain ticks, we expect people to be on the same wavelength. So for me, taking time or things take longer than you think. And I suppose the other one is just to stay calm. So it was actually an Instagram post. I was probably doom scrolling, and it was like these actors sitting around the table, and they were talking about when times are good and times are bad, and it was like stay calm. So like when you're doing well, stay calm, but if times are bad or rough or things aren't going your way, stay calm. And that's really stayed with me. It's like just try to stay in this sort of flow state, which really helps me personally.
I love that. I love that last one. I think that's great advice. I really like your brother's one as well. You might fall, you might fly. It's sort of like if you don't go out and try, you'll never know, right? So it's kind of like, okay, feel the fear, but do it anyway, which is book title.
Yeah,
But I think that's great. That's a great advice. Yeah, really, really good. Rhys, it's been a pleasure.
thank you. No,
Thank
I
you for
really
your
enjoyed
time,
it.
and I wish you every success. It sounds like you're going gangbusters. And thanks for your time today.
Thank you. Look forward to chatting again. Thank
Great.
you.